What's up, folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to check out Omnia, and we're going to check out how I figure out where I'm going to fish before I ever get to a body of water. I'm a big believer in doing a bunch of homework. Omnia has a bunch of amazing features, plus we're going to check out some stuff I found on Google Earth that's really cool. So let's break down how I figure out where I'm going to fish before I get to that body of water. Okay guys, first up on Omnia, what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally select the lake that I'm going to, right? And right now we're going to look at Lake Wazee because it is one of the most popular tournament lakes in the state of Indiana. I don't go there a lot, but I need to do some homework on this lake, so let's dive in. The first thing that I'm going to look for over here on my Pro Map features right here in these layers tab is the CMAP social charts, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a gander at what we got. So it looks like a lot of our structure is in between 20 and 50 feet on this lake. Just looking around, looking at the map, you got a lot of stuff 10 foot to 20 foot and shallower. We got a lot of different structure in this natural lake. It's pretty deep. Looking over here, you've got connected areas. You've got connected, looks like almost wetland or super shallow areas here that could play. You've got another whole lake connected up here, Syracuse Lake. Looking over this way, you've got some long channels. You got some stuff. So in the springtime, what I'm looking for are basically transition areas that are going to transition me from the deep wintering holes to where those fish are eventually going to spawn. Now I'm immediately drawn to this bay right here because in the springtime fish like to be protected from the north wind to spawn, and it's got a nice big channel that runs right up into this body of water. So let's kind of zoom in here on the bay and see what we got, right? So it looks like we've got 20 feet up in, and then it's going to transition to super shallow back here. I really like these channels right here, especially they have a little bit of deeper spots in it, 6 and 8 foot. Those channels are going to hold fish. Fish are going to spawn in these channels. There's a lot of fingers in there. I like that. Right. Next thing that I'm checking on is I'm going to, okay, I found a spot. This looks like a good starting area. I got a lot of stuff in a small area. You want to bang for your buck, right? I'm going to check bottom hardness and see. Okay, right here immediately, this spot is screaming start here, right here. It's at the mouth of 2 channels. It's a very hard bottom right here. This is a textbook transition area. 1, 2, 3, right there. Look at all these other hard spots over here that are going to hold fish. As the day wears on and the sun beats down on these areas, they get warm first. We also see that these channels have some firm bottom in them, which are good spawning areas for bass. Bass want to spawn in firm areas. That's beautiful right there to see. Then we can look back this way, and what I'm going to look for are other hard spots where fish can gather. Right, so there's a big one right there. I'm going to look back this way a little bit and see there's a perfect transition area right there. You want that bottom hardness. Fish are going to gather on these spots as they're moving in. So they're going to winter out here in the deeper. They're going to move from these spots up into these areas to spawn. So what I'm going to do is select a bunch of these different spots to look at now through different lenses. So we're going to go from bottom hardness to vegetation. Now, vegetation is key because a lot of times vegetation will be indicative of bottom composition. You'll have lily pads in hard bottom. You'll have weeds and things in soft bottom or muck. But what fish are going to do is they're going to use these bottom hard spots and this vegetation to move from deep to shallow. And if you can find deeper grass this time of the year, you're going to do very, very well. So I can see here that we've got a ton of vegetation in Johnson Bay, but it goes out to 20 feet. This is good. That means that I could possibly find a lot of fish and a lot of bait fish in this region right here. I also like this because it's a gut. We talked about those in the winter all the time. Fish live out here in the winter. They're going to use these places and these lines right here of vegetation to feed. So that's an excellent place to start. We can also see that vegetation is scattered in these areas, which means that people are probably spraying in these channels and cutting things back, but it's also beginning to be very indicative of bass spawning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look around and see if there's any other vegetation lines that I can follow around the lake, right? You see a nice vegetation line here that's running right out here in deep water. You see those humps. You can see in a lot of different places where there's scattered vegetation. You can also see places that are blanketed in vegetation that are going to be hard to work through. So when I start to fish a place I'm not used to, I want to focus on a smaller area and decoding what is in front of me. Now, the next thing that I want to look at is water clarity, right? Water clarity on the app will show you here where the water is really clear on Wazee and where it is not. A lot of times fish will be more predictable in off-colored water, right, this time of year. So I look down here, I see there's a lot more off-colored water on the south end of the lake. Might not be a bad idea to see if I can replicate some of those things down here as a second spot. So let's just look at the bottom hardness and see we've got a nice transition area right here. We've got some nice channels with bottom hardness. Oh, look at that. We've got a nice hard spot right there. If we look at the vegetation, most of this is covered in vegetation. You've got an empty hole right here. Interesting things that you can learn by just simply looking at a map and going through these locations before you ever have to take your boat there. You can spend a lot less gas on a lake if you know what you're looking at before you get there, right? Now, I also want to look at these areas up here. We can see in Syracuse Lake we have a nice vein of vegetation out here into 10 to 20 foot of water. If I look at bottom hardness, let's check that. This is a really hard bottom structure here. Those are really good areas to start in when the water is cooler. Now let's look on the north side of the lake, see if we can find anything there. We got a nice little offshoot channel into a pocket here. We've also got some harder bottom areas reaching out deeper. Let's check our vegetation, see what we got. It kind of mirrors that, right? But, ooh, I really like these areas where it's different. That is a fantastic way to kind of narrow down spots to start. So you don't have to run this whole thing with electronics. You can say, I'm going to drop a pin here. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to drop a pin over here. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to really focus on this area right here in that 10 to 12 foot range. And if you don't have Omnia, you're just kind of looking at a blank lake there starting. Now, the thing that I want to consider here also is fish are going to jump from place to place. Areas where I can find saddles and ridges. In between those areas are also going to be transition areas and load up for that pre-spawn push to the shallows, right? We also want to look in here because these are interesting. You got a lot of backwater areas, but you got some deeper areas in here. Maybe if the lake's blown out, that's the deepest channel that I've seen, 10 to 12 foot. 8 foot back in here, main channel, but with channels it's hard, so that's where we're going to go to Google Maps and kind of check out the lay of the lake before we ever get there. So now we're on Google Maps, right? And Google Maps is an amazing tool, so let's check out some of these channel areas up here. Here's Syracuse Lake, here's Wazee. If we're going to go in between, we can see that a lot of this is covered or matted vegetation in the summertime. But if we look at this back channel that we are interested in right here, we can really get a good feel, and we can go 2D or 3D, and I'll show you why that's kind of a bonus. Looking at it 3D, you have a lot of boat slips. There's no vegetation back here. It's very controlled. That's going to mean that it's going to be a static environment back here in a lot of this. But fish love marinas and boat slips. If you can find wood in here, you're going to find a lot of bass. So that's when we go to this 3D kind of element right here that's kind of really cool on Google Earth. And you can really get in and see what an area has to offer. I really like looking at this because it's giving me an idea of where I want to fish before I get there, right? That's a cool looking channel back in there that really could play. If it's super windy and I can't fish the spots that I wanted to start, we can see and cut down a lot of this water out here is going to be washed or good. You can look at these back hidden channels. There's a spot that you would really never consider but could be a gold mine pre-spawn, right? It's at the back end of a long grassy channel that you might or might not consider. Same thing here, looking at this area, you've got a railroad trestle bridge into kind of Syracuse Lake that we wanted to see. So let's kind of clean this view up here. And look at what we got. Let's get north back up here. Reset. There we go. We can see immediately that Syracuse has really good water clarity. You can look and see that depth, but you can see that same point that we wanted to fish right there. Cool thing about this is you can really zoom in and see a lot of stuff. Let's go check Wazee because it's known for some really good water clarity. And here can be another secret weapon, right? So let's look at kind of all of this mid-lake grass. You see these big patches. You have a wetland conservation area right in here, which means that Johnson Bay is going to have more of a wild feel to it. And then let's really look at these areas where we saw hard bottom. You can see here, this is a hard bottom area. It's got a nice mix of sand in it. It's got a nice mix of weeds. You can see these transition areas. That is a transition area for fish. Up here, you can see these other hard bottom areas. These are going to be nice transition areas where you're going to find bass. Let's look at these channels, right? Because we were interested in fishing these. Let's go 3D, take a look, kind of spin it around, see where we want to look. We see a lot of boat lifts, a lot of overhanging things. We have lily pads, which means hard bottom, which means very, very good chance of fish spawning in here. So with a 10-minute look at a lake, you can get a feel for a lot of the things that you want to do. It's a great way to kind of give yourself a heads up of what the lake is like before you get there. Omnia is an amazing tool. It just does a fantastic job at looking at all of these things in one place. The wind map, and you can see wind is blowing, across that bay. Interesting. You can look at all of these air temperature things. You can look at water clarity, water temperature, boat ramps, all of the bottom things. It's really a cool feature of all of this. I really like the water clarity and the water temperature. You can see here, clarity, red is darker, no clarity, clear is super clarity, so you can kind of see that before you go. We'll turn that wind off, turn that clarity off. Water temperature will tell you it's cold up in Wazee right now. So it's just a lot of cool features. Check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It was kind of a cerebral day at the office. Just making sure that we understand what is being presented to us on any body of water before we go. Guys, if you like Omnia, check them out. Buy stuff from there. It helps support us. And give us a like, subscribe. We'll see you out there next time.